So, Billy, first of all, then, do you have any sort of early European memories? Was it always something you wanted to play in?
My earliest I remember watching rugby was probably a Leicester Tigers team who won Heineken Cup at Cardiff. Neil Back's famous slap into the scrum and then the game being over. And then my early years at Leicester Tigers, Leicester played in a quarter-final against Cardiff at the Millennium Stadium, ended up going to that penalty shootout when it first got introduced, and the controversy and excitement of that. And then fast forward a few years, making my would have been Heineken Cup debut for Leicester Tigers against Ospreys, against the Lions that were that summer in 2009 at James Hook. Tommy Bowe, Lee Byrne, all these Shane Williams, meeting all these players, and that's what Europe is. You get to play against the best players in Europe and sometimes even the world. And this weekend for this Gloucester team, it's very similar. We're going to be playing against some superstars in La Rochelle, so very exciting.
Yeah, would you say that's what makes Europe special? Sort of the chance to play people different and have different experiences that you probably once in a lifetime.
I think the excitement around the competition is massive because it's unique. It has history, it has pedigree with this club. I remember watching Gloucester go to Munster as a youngster as well, and having to get a certain amount of points and things not working right, and being in games here for Gloucester. And we had a playoff game here against Connacht that went to extra time, and I remember Johnny May doing the length to get it into extra time, and Billy Meat scoring under the post, and it was 120 minutes on the clock. And then playing down at Twickenham Stoop in 2015, lifting the Challenge Cup with the boys. All these are great memories of Europe and against teams that you don't often play against, being an English domestic team. So it's a unique thing because you get to analyse teams that you haven't really looked at before, and players you wouldn't have the chance to play against. So there's another opportunity for the guys who haven't done it to go to a stadium or a place where they've never been and taste what rugby means to that place, that town or that city.
Yeah, and of course the fans love it as well, don't they? We've seen obviously some special European nights here at Kingsholm and away. Just thinking back to the most recent one in Bordeaux, the fans seem to love it. It seems to be a sort of unique vibe, doesn't it? So do the players sort of feel that?
You definitely feel it. You feel it arriving at the stadium, leaving the stadium, going out the tunnel and seeing the Gloucester faithful normally in the back end corner where they put them, but they make themselves loud and proud, and they cheer the boys on. And the Gloucester support has always been amazing in every European game or every away game you go to. We always have a huge amount of support, and it's even better when we get a result away from home and everyone's cheering us on with the flags, and you can see the cherry and white shirts, and it makes it all worthwhile for the boys and the families and friends that travel over as well. So European support is significant, and even so when we play games at Kingsholm, you see the opposition support come over, and that is the special place that Europe has in a lot of clubs. And to get into a knockout stage and challenge a new environment with this group is one that I think you see the young lads and senior lads are looking forward to.
Yeah, and obviously I mentioned that Bordeaux game, the last game out in Europe.
Yeah.
How special was that one? So it felt like a really special one.
I think in hindsight it was special. In the moment as a player, you probably don't think much of it. You are very much living in that moment of what you're doing with the lads around you, looking at how can we get the job done. To be honest, it's you get on a plane, you travel, you get to a hotel, eat your food, you chat to your mates, you wake up, you go to a game and play, and then you get on a plane and go home. You don't really realise the city or anything you've been to. It's just about the game. But then you look back on it and you hear stories about the travelling support and hear the stadium and the sort of it was a very intimidating environment to go into when you walk down the tunnel, and then you come out and it's an amazing environment to play in. An old school grass pitch in a way, and very intimidating characters on the pitch as well. So you look back on it and you think, yeah, great result. As a player, you can get caught up in it, but sometimes it is literally getting there playing rugby on a different environment. And like you said, when you're on that plane home or on that trip back, and you can, that's a good one, lads. A good one. Let's get that feeling again, which hopefully we'll replicate this weekend.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people said after the sort of performance out there, maybe backs to the wall a little bit, reminded them of that 2017 game in La Rochelle. Obviously, we went to know that we'd have La Rochelle in the round 16 now. Obviously, as one of the players that played in that game, sort of what are your memories of that, and how did that feel after?
I seem to remember us going there quietly confident of our abilities in the group. We're sort of probably a sticky area. I remember in the Premiership that time, weren't going too well, and we felt Europe was a nice balance of letting off steam a little bit and letting the pressure of the domestic league. And like I said, we went over there with a really good plan. I remember it all week. Our analyst, Darren Lewis, came up with a great plan along with the coaches then, and we stunned them with a few players. And we also, I think, embraced the atmosphere that you get in, especially French away teams, and it's difficult. It's intimidating. They're whistling, they're booing. You're walking out a tunnel, they don't want you to be there. They make you want to feel like, to turn around and go home. But I think that's the atmosphere that most players want to play in. So, and to silence the crowd at the end is one of the best feelings as a rugby player. When the team goes, or the crowd goes quiet, when you're away from home, you're doing something right. So I think that's, and then the team builds confidence from that. And that away game was, I remember, little Bill Burns running the length of an intercept and just weaving his way through, and he's got Johnny May and Henry Chinders screaming up behind him, and that sealed the deal really in the end. And then some great defence from the boys. It made us get to a final. So huge memories.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously the French crowd. Obviously be another massive factor this weekend. But do you feel like you can take confidence from the fact you went to Bordeaux, obviously a completely different challenge, but you went to France this year and won? Yeah,
I think what you'll find in a team, you got 23 lads playing at the weekend. Everyone will feel different about it, and I think that's the power of the group. Like how we've spoke about it. It's going to be intimidating. It's going to be hostile. Like great, that's fine. That's what rugby is. It can be hostile at Kingsholm, which is great. But everyone's behind you. Everyone wants to do well. Like we understand what we're doing as players, and that's why we have the conversations and meetings and training in the week, so we get used to each other, so the boys can put their best foot forward. So I think this guy's going to be 20 years old and up all the way to the senior lads playing in this game. So it's how we deal with it as a group, and it's up to us senior lads or the boys on the pitch to deal with it and embrace it and take on these superstars that La Rochelle have got. Like, what better place to go play rugby when you ever get the opportunity to do that in any normal life? So very, very lucky.
And obviously it's impossible to talk about Gloucester playing in Europe. There's the picture just up there of you lifting that trophy.
Yeah, a young face Billy there, eh?
Yeah. So can you just tell us a little bit about that day? Obviously meant quite a lot.
Do you know what I remember about that day? Is travelling down on the day and feeling horrendously car sick for a few hours. I remember to my head physio, Bob Stewart, said, "Have you got anything to help me out with here?" Because it was a few hours till kick off. But no, I remember that as well. That a lot of nerves. Finals, they're not the best games normally. And I remember we made a quick start. I think we should have scored another try in the corner with Sharples, and Johnny and Chaz made down like an 80-metre run. And I was like, "Go on, lads, get over the line." And then it ended up being a bit tit for tat. Meeksy clotheslined someone, and then I think in the 60th minute, and they got sent off. And then Ross Morris, he got the red mist and got yellow carded. So we ended up finishing the game with 13 men. And like I said, you just find a way to win in finals. And that group was, very resilient. We had people like James Hook, Greg Laidlaw, Richard Hibbard, Tom Savage, like senior guys with a huge amount of experience that knew how to get the job done. And I was the younger captain, just excited to be there with the lads.
Yeah. Do you feel obviously that was one of the better moments in Europe? You've tasted some not so good moments in Europe as well. Do you feel like you can you've learnt a lot from that?
Yeah, I think it was the Challenge Cup final, so it's not the Heineken Cup or Champions Cup. Sorry. So I think and it's great winning medals, but I think most professional guys aspire to be the best players in the country and the world. You want to be in the top tournament. That's what we've been in this year. We've been humbled at home by Leinster and away, and we've put some dogged performance to Bordeaux to give us a chance. And you take all those experiences of what you've had this year and in previous, and take the good things from them and learn from the bad things. And what's given us is an opportunity as a group of players and as an organisation to go over there and put our best foot forward. And time's finite. You want to get out there and put your best foot forward. And when are you ever going to get the chance to play against La Rochelle and at home with a hostile crowd? It's just exciting, really, Hayden. If I'm honest, it's why you do it.
Obviously, we touched on it a bit earlier, but I just want to finish. How excited are you for this Saturday and to see all the Cherry and Whites fans out in La Rochelle?
This Saturday with the Cherry and White fans in that La Rochelle stadium would be amazing. To hear the support and see the support, it's just going to give boys a huge lift, and it's what European rugby is about. Away days in Europe, in knockout rugby, that's why we play it. Can't wait.